Hi, welcome to the small shed. This Saturday hopefully we're going to finish off the whole of the pond by getting the waterfall up and running. See you in a minute. Now in past weeks we've seen me take all the water lily out of the pond that was the size of a small shed, mend the pump that was engulfed by it and clogged it up, got that working, and last time I did the actual pond itself, got it back to a level that it would sustain, rebedded all the edgings. That just left the water feature at the end, which is like a small waterfall. So let's get on to that, go out in the garden, have a look at it and see where we are. Now first thing to do is to go and have a quick look at the pond itself, the top pond and the waterfall, see what was wrong. The actual pipe that fed up to it had been leaking, so I put a hose in that to see what would happen, whether it would hold water, plugged one end up, and sure enough I found a leak into the garden just above the neck where it went into the feed into the pond. So that had got to come out. The easiest thing, rather than replace the whole pipe, is to actually cut it shorter and feed it into the side of the new one. So I've got that sorted. Then it was a matter of taking out all the old liner that was there. It was a mishmash of pieces that had been left over from the main pond itself, and therefore wasn't ideal because you'd got a lot of joints, and although they were overlapped on downhill facing parts, it probably wasn't the best way to have done it. And the other thing is, it was tending to be a little bit stuck on top of the ground. I'd not really taken a great deal of time and effort to dig things out, so all of the stonework round it tended to be on top. And really the ideal thing to do is to get even the stonework in the pond with the liner going up behind it, like I had on the revised build on the pond itself. So I've taken all the stones out and just cleaned it all up, pulled that hose back a bit so that I can cut out the bit that was damaged. I shan't have the hose going into the pond itself, it'll feed it in over the top, because if it goes into the pond and you switch the pump off, it'll tend to siphon all the water out of the top pond down into the bottom, and then it overflows and you lose the water. I'm sure I could get a one-way valve to sort it, but it didn't really seem worth it for this. So I then dug out the pond a lot deeper, a lot more pond shaped, if you like. It was just a dish in the ground before, and the water course down to the bottom as well was dug out so that I could get a decent shaped valley in it for the liner to go in. The basic shape was then lined with a bit of building sand to get it roughly to level and to the right sort of shape that I wanted. Normally, as with the pond itself, I would then put in a piece of carpet or something just to protect the liner, but in this instance I thought I might as well reuse the original top pond liner that was left over, that I just ripped out, just to provide a barrier to stop any sort of damage from stones protruding from the ground once you get the weight of water on them. Right, we've got a couple of packages for the waterfall, which is to do with liner for it. The last time I did it, I made the fatal mistake of trying to make do with what I'd got left over from the pond itself with liner, and it really wasn't quite big enough, and as a result the whole thing was a bit of a disaster. This is just a butyl rubber, seems to last well. That other liner has been in for many years. Now for me aesthetically that's all right, but on the actual waterfall part of it I didn't really want just black beautiful rubber showing. It's meant really for going around the edge of ponds. It's got grit bonded into it, and that will weather down with algae and stuff on it, and also it will grip onto anything you put on it. So first job is to take out this liner, get it roughly laid out on the lawn, and start and measure up and cut it to rough size. Butyl liner itself is like a rubber material, seems to have lasted well on the other section that I had. It's what I think they use on EDPM roofs now. It's much better than the old traditional plasticky sort of liners that you got that would degrade. It was a piece that was about 4 meters by 3 that I bought, so that I'd get the whole thing done in one go rather than having pieces, separate pieces like I had before. So there's no chance of it getting a leak through joints at any rate. But it's a bit like wrestling a salmon. There's bits flying out everywhere. It's difficult until you start to get the rough shape cut out. But it cuts with a pair of big scissors quite easily. Trim it roughly to shape and start to get it in fitted okay. Now I've got to find a use for all the bits that I've got left over. I'm suspecting that men in sheds will be having a lot of birdhouse roof coverings donated to them. I put the hose on it then just to get it settled into place. It's worth just filling it up slowly just to get the liner bedded in properly. And then I had to sort of have a think about what stones I've got left and how they would do as edgings and what sort of order I could lay them in. So I got the hose out on the lawn, moved it roughly to the right size so that it became about the right shape, and then started to lay what I'd got left to give me a rough idea of the whether I'd got enough stone left. As it happens, I think I've managed with what we'd got in the rockery itself and what I'd used previously. I had located a source to get some more should I need it, but if we could do it without having to buy any more, so much the better. It's just like a big jigsaw really. It's just a matter of getting the edges looking reasonably to the right shape, and then I could just pick them up one at a time or two at a time, go and lay them round the pond on the liner. For the actual waterfall part itself, I then laid in that grit covered liner. It just gives something for any stones that you lay around the edges or put in the base of it, just helps grip them a bit, and it takes mortar quite well. And from then I could just start and build up the rockery back up from the pond upwards, so that the stones were sort of bedded on the ones beneath further down the water course. Same as before, 1 to 3 mortar all the way up to the top. Just had to cut that top hose down a bit once I'd got that sorted, and disguise it as best I could. Again, in long term, hopefully a bit of planting in and around the pond will totally lose it anyway, but I was just burying it under a stone as well that would be round the edge. same as before, 1 to 3 mortar mix, fairly strong mix. And I'd set a piece in the top of the watercourse just to give me a rough idea of level that the water would start and flow out above. Then the butyl liner was trimmed back to hide its existence. Again, simple enough to cut with either a pair of scissors or a Stanley knife. Some of the original rockery stone was embedded a lot lower than I probably needed it now with this revised arrangement, so I just dug a couple of those out, lifted them up a few inches, brought them forward to allow a bit more soil and planting to go in, and started to get the soil back in to bring it a bit more to level. And then it was time to start trying to get the pump back in. I've rewired it into the box it was in, and this is pretty much full circle now to where we started when I dragged it out in the first place. Time to put it back in, wire it all in, go switch it on and see if it actually does what it should do. It's just placed on a couple of bricks in the bottom of the pond just to lift it up slightly off the bottom so the filters don't get too badly clogged up. Turn it on, and sure enough the water started to come out at the top, and a couple of weeks in, no sign of it coming out anywhere else other than occasionally, as I say, it overflowed at the back of those stones just when that outlet got blocked a bit. But we're pretty much there. If I have to, I can lift them very slightly, but I think I'm happy with it as it is. Time to just pretty it up a bit. Got a load of stone cobbles and gravel to put in the watercourse itself, just so that it trickles down through it. And then trip to the garden centre. Now we're out of lockdown, which is great. Got a few more plants, so we've transformed it from a bit of a dingy rundown affair to something that now looks a bit better. Tidies the garden up. It was quite shabby as it was, with the rockery all broken down, and now it's functioning, looking a lot happier. We've got a lot more wildlife back. We've got dragonflies and, well, damselflies, water boatmen and all sorts back in existence over the pond. We've got a frog, of course, that you've seen, or two, and the newts in the pond. So all in all, quite happy with what we've achieved. So that's it. I'm quite happy with what we've done. It'll take a while to get the planting settled in and around it, but at least now it's tidy, it works. I've put it on a timer so that it comes on in the morning about 9 o'clock and goes off about 7 at night, and it just seems to be holding the level relatively well. A couple of occasions when the top of the waterfall has got blocked up by debris, it then overflows the pond at the top and pumps the bottom half empty, but those are minor niggles that we can sort out in time. On the whole, very pleased. One little job ticked off that was due to be done this summer, so quite happy with that. Look forward to seeing you next Saturday, and we'll have something different. See you then. Bye.